friends, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Pamela, and on this channel, I share my weight loss journey. Over the last 11 months, I have lost nearly 50 pounds using lifestyle modification and a little help from some compounded Tirzepatide. One of the modifications that I've implemented is meal prepping. So each week I prep my meals so that I have everything handy and ready to go, and I'm not tempted to pick up fast food or order out. So today I'm going to be sharing with you the meals that I prepped for my week 49 on my compounded Tirzepatide journey. The meals that I'm prepping this week include beef and chicken fajitas, some chili, and some Jamaican brown stew chicken. So the vegetables that I have here are 2 green bell peppers, 2 red bell peppers, some green onions, some carrots, some celery, some onions, and then I also have the tops of the celery that I'll be using, along with 2 Scotch bonnet peppers that I've pulled out my freezer. So first I'm going to start by chopping my red bell pepper. Now I'll be using this for both the fajitas and the brown stew chicken. So I'm going to just take these seeds out, and then I'm going to slice some of these up into long strips for the fajitas. And then I'll also be chopping some of it into about 1/4 inch pieces for the brown stew chicken. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the green bell pepper, but I'm going to use just a little bit more of that for the brown stew than I did with the red bell pepper. Now, as you can see, I'm putting these into separate bowls. So I have all of my fajita vegetable strips in one bowl, as you can see right here, and then the other bowl is what I'll use for the brown stew. And now I'm going to start prepping my celery. This will be used in both the brown stew chicken and then also in my chili. So some of it I will leave in longer strips. And then for the chili, I will cut some of it up into about 1/4 inch pieces. And I will saute that in with some onions and some garlic for the chili. So you see now I've added another bowl. I'm going to also cut up some of my green onions for my brown stew chicken. And then I'm going to clean my carrots. And once these are good and peeled, I will chop these up into bite-sized pieces as well. Now these carrots were pretty big, so I did have to cut them into quarters. And then once I did that, I just cut them into about 1 to 2 inch pieces. And then those will go into the pot with the brown stew chicken. Now, once I finish with my carrots, I'm going to get started on my onions. And the onions will go into the chili, the brown stew chicken, and then also into the fajitas. So I'll cut some of them into strips as well. For the brown stew chicken, I also have the tops of my celery and a couple of Scotch bonnet peppers. For my chili, I'm going to get that started by sauteing my veggies. This again is onions, celery, and I didn't show it, but I also chopped up some garlic in here as well. Now, once that gets translucent, I'm going to add my ground chili meat and stir that up to brown it just a little bit. Then I'm going to go in with my seasoning packets. I'm using the Kinder's chili seasoning mix. And I also have a few cans of diced fire roasted tomatoes. So those will go in the pot next. And finally, I am using some beef bouillon to make my beef broth. That will go into the pot as well. Once I've gotten all of that in, I will stir it around just to incorporate everything. And this is looking amazing. I'm going to put the lid on and let that go. Time lapse. We have gotten through our first cycle. I've added in my rinsed beans and some tomato paste. I'm going to let this go for one more cycle. Now it's time to get started on my marinade for my brown stew chicken, and I did forget to show thyme earlier, so I'm adding that into the food processor as well. And I'm going to let this go until it's a nice, smooth, liquidy consistency. Now I do have to scrape down the sides of the food processor just to make sure everything gets well incorporated. And I'm gonna run this one more time until everything gets nice and smooth. Then I have my chicken. I'm gonna season this with some ginger, some allspice, some Cajun seasoning, some garlic powder, and some onion powder, and then my marinade. And once I get that in, I'm just going to mix it up really well. Make sure everything is nice and coated with all of those seasonings. Now I'm going to go in with my browning sauce. And then I'm just going to mix this all up again and make sure that I have all of the chicken coated in the browning and the seasoning blend. And this is what we're looking like. I'm just going to put this into a Ziploc bag and keep this in the refrigerator for a few hours. Now we're going to do the exact same thing with all of our onions and peppers and vegetables that we've cut up for the brown stew chicken. I'm going to put the rest of that marinade in here, and I'm going to season it with the same spices: ginger, allspice, Cajun seasoning, garlic powder, and onion powder, and then my browning. And I'm going to mix that up until everything is well coated. Now it's time to check on our chili once again. It was tasting pretty good, but it did look a little watery, so I did go ahead and make a slurry out of flour and water and mix that in. And at this point the chili is done, so I'm not going to turn the pot back on. I'm just going to put the lid on and let the residual heat cook that and thicken up the chili. Now it's time to season up my meat for the fajitas. I'll be using Cajun seasoning, fajita seasoning, onion powder, and garlic powder. And of course, I'll be cooking this in my cast iron skillet. Now the chicken was already pre-seasoned, but I'm going to season it again. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my beef, and I'm just going to season these a few at a time because I want to make sure that I get all of this seasoning very well incorporated on all of these pieces. And once I'm done with one side of the beef, I'm going to turn everything over and then season the other side. Again, I'm using onion powder, garlic powder, Cajun seasoning, and the fajita seasoning. And once everything is seasoned on both sides, I'm just going to kind of massage that into the meat just to make sure that the seasoning sticks to it. And I'll do the same with the chicken as well. Then I'm going to season my vegetables again with the same seasonings. Yes, I did put onion powder on my onions. Sue me if you want to. I am also putting a little bit of avocado oil on just to make sure that the seasonings stick to the vegetables. Now once I have everything seasoned, I'm going to go ahead and heat up my skillet and put a little bit of oil down in the bottom. I'm using avocado oil. Then I'm going to place my chicken in first, and I want to make sure that I leave room around the chicken. I don't want to overcrowd my pan because then your chicken will start to sweat and it will simmer rather than getting that good browning on it. And I'll flip this over. You'll know when it's ready to flip because it'll release easily from the pan. And my pan does not get as hot on the outside as the inside, so I did have to turn this over a few times to make sure that I got all of it browned pretty well. And I'm just checking it to make sure that I've hit the proper temperature. And once I can see that it is at the right temperature, I will take these out and set them aside. Then I'm going to go right in the same pan with my beef fajita. And again, I don't want to crowd the pan. And once these are good and brown on one side, I'll flip them over and then I will set those aside as well. Finally, I'm going to go in with my vegetables. And again, I'm just using the same pan. I want the vegetables to pick up all of that flavor that's left in the bottom of the pan. So I'm going to let these get a good char on them. I don't want to cook them too much, so I still want them to be pretty al dente when I take them out of the pan because they will continue to cook some more. Then I'm just going to do the same thing with my onions. Once they've got a good char on them, I'll take them out and I will set all of that aside. All right, so all of my veggies now are done. This is what we're looking like. I did mix them all up and I'm just gonna set all this to the side. I only have one meal left to do. That's the brown stew chicken. And that is fairly simple because everything is already prepped. All I have to do is brown the meat and get it going. Now I'm about to get started on my brown stew chicken. I have my pan heating up here with some avocado oil. It's about maybe 3 to 4 tablespoons. You see the chicken is all good and marinated here. It's been sitting for a few hours now, and I'm going to do this in batches because I want to get a good browning real quick on both sides. I'm not trying to cook the chicken through. I'm only trying to get the outside browned, and I'll just throw it in with the veggies because once all of the chicken is brown, everything will go back in the pot and it will simmer down the rest of the way. And I think my pan is good to go now. Let me just put some of this in there. And again, you don't want to overcrowd the pan, but you just want to get a good little browning on each side. All right, so we'll let that go for just a minute or two, and then we'll flip it, do the same on the other side, and then we'll take that out and we will get the next batch in. All right, I've gone ahead and flipped these over. That only took about 1.5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes. And it's kind of hard to tell because these do have browning on them, so they are going to look darker than they really are. They're not cooked this much. It's just that browning that's on them. But you can tell they are a little bit darker than when I put them in the pan. So that's how you'll know that they're ready to be turned over. And then I'm going to let this go for a couple of minutes, and then I'll put my next batches in. And then once all of this is done, we'll be back and we'll put everything back in the pot. Now we are on the last one. Everything is browned. I'm not even going to take this out the pan. I'm just going to go back in with the rest of my chicken and my vegetables. I'm going to go ahead and mix my water with my chicken bouillon so that I can make my broth here. Okay, hopefully that's enough. Let's mix that around, and I'm using this bowl because I want to try to get the rest of that little seasoning out of the bowl if I can. You know, waste not, want not, right? So let's not forget my Scotch bonnet peppers. I'm going to use 2 because I like it spicy, and these, because they've been freeze dried, are not quite as spicy as a fresh Scotch bonnet. So we're going to let this boil for a little bit, and then once it's boiling, we will turn it down and let it simmer. All right, while that is going, I'm going to cut up my meat for the fajitas. And I'm just going in and making sure to cut this against the grain so that it can remain tender. Okay, I have all of my beef cut up. Before I pour the juice in here, I'm going to weigh this. I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to put an empty bowl, and I'm going to put this, I use grams. So it's showing 0 when I take the bowl off. It's a negative 24, so the bowl weighs 24 grams. When I put my meat on, I have 503 grams of meat. So it has subtracted the weight of the bowl. So that's how I determine how much I have. And I am going to pour the juice in here now so that it can stay nice and juicy. We'll just say 500 grams. If I do 4 meals, that's going to be 125 grams per meal. Now I'm just going to do the same thing with my chicken and cut it into strips against the grain. And once I have all of my chicken cut up, then I can start assembling my fajita meals. We have 473 grams of chicken, and so we will divide that into about 115, I believe, for 4 meals. Let me clear this out. And for this one, we said about 115. I'm just going to go with 100 now. And then if I have more left over, I will add that in, because sometimes this measurement is a little bit off. Let's say maybe 110. Perfect, 110. Now I'm just going to do the same with the other 2 chicken fajita meals and measure them out as close to 110 as possible. And I did end up with a few pieces of chicken left, so I just divvied those up among the 3 bowls. So now we've got our chicken all separated. What I'm going to do is measure my veggies and see how much veggies I have. Now my veggies I will have to divide by 8 because I'm actually separating that among the 4 chicken ones and the 4 beef. And you see how even though I cooked these al dente, now they are even softer than when I first took them out. They do continue to cook a little bit as they're sitting. So you definitely don't want to cook these until they're the level of doneness that you want to put them on your fajitas. All right, we're at 665, and I'm just going to round it down to 650. And Alexa, what is 650 divided by 8? 650 divided by 8 is 81.25. Okay, so we'll just do like 80 grams and we'll see where we're at. All right, so I've got her tortillas. I've got her meals here, and I am going to get some cheese. So I have 8 ounces of cheese, and we're doing 8 meals, so that means each meal will get 1 ounce of cheese. Have my 4 meals for my bestie with the chicken fajitas, and I just put the cheese cups inside the meals. I'm going to do the same thing for beef. now that I have all of the meals separated, I'm going to put these little stickers over the lids. These came with the containers and they just help to keep the lids on. For the chili, I'm just going to measure out what looks like a good serving size. Okay, so that's 400 grams. This is a very decent size right here. So I think this is going to be perfect. I'm going to make 3 for my bestie, 3 for myself, and we'll see what's left. I've got here my 3 bowls of chili, and then I have 3 in the back over there for my bestie. I'm gonna let these cool off and then I will put them in the refrigerator. So this is just about done. I just turned the heat up because I'm gonna let the water boil down some more, but everything looks good and tender. The Scotch bonnet peppers are still intact, which is a good thing. I can't find my ketchup, but I do have ketchup packets. So it's not too much. You just want like maybe 2 packets, 3 at the most. And I don't want to stir this around too much because I don't want to break up that chicken, but I do need to mix in that ketchup so it can start to thicken that sauce up just a little bit. Traditionally, I believe you would chop up a tomato. I didn't have a tomato and forgot to buy one, but I'm just going to taste this to see if it needs any more seasoning. Let me grab a spoon real quick. I'm just going to go with Slap Your Mama because that was the first thing I can find. So I'm just add a little bit of that. I don't want to season it much more because it is still going to cook down some. This is the finished product. I did taste it. It is good. It does have a decent spice level. This is what your chicken is looking like. That's it. I just need to cook some rice. And I'm not going to show that. Just, we all know how to cook rice, hopefully. And then I need to cook my cornbread, and it's just a box cornbread, so I'm not going to show that. I'll show the end product. All right, my cornbread muffins are done, and they look beautiful. I'm just letting them cool off, and now I am going to start plating up the last meal, which is the brown stew chicken. Let's do 160. I feel like 160 is a good amount. That's what we're at right now. And that looks like a decent amount for a meal, especially for me. I don't even know if I will eat that much. All right, so this is the finished meal. I have 325 grams of the brown stew chicken. These are our meals for this week. We've got the brown stew chicken with rice. We've got chili with cornbread, and there'll be 2 cornbread muffins for each bowl of chili. We've got either chicken fajitas or beef fajitas. I'll have the beef. My bestie will have the chicken, and 2 tortillas for each meal as well. The way I have divvied it out, that makes 10 meals for the week. 3 chili, 3 brown stew chicken, and 4 of the fajitas.